Hello again, everyone. It's good to have you with us for this event. It figures to be an exceptional one that doesn't need any build-up.
Are you ready?
Don't ever give up. Don't ever stop fighting.
This is the main event of the evening.
Athletes, huddle up. It's time to begin. Get focused. Let's go.
Welcome to Addict to Athletes Overtime with Coach Blue and Athletic Director Marissa.
Hello.
New name change.
Are you going to remember this next week?
I totally am. I came up with it. I was thinking, we've got to change this name because when we first started this, it was the dreaded pandemic of 2020. We wanted to get more stuff out there for the listeners, kind of a call-in show type thing. And trust me, we are going to get the hookups to get you guys access line to call in. But right now we're fielding questions through our social media. So if you have any questions, you can jump on social media. We used to say Zoom, but we got rid of Zoom because we never used it.
Yeah. And we're using Google Chat and
we've got Google Chat. We've got
Riverside,
Facebook.
Options.
Shoot, you can get a hold of us somehow. But stay tuned as we kind of update and upgrade some of the equipment to get the lines in here so that you guys can call in. That's kind of what we want to do. But name change, moving from one-on-one live with Coach Blue to the Addict to Athlete Overtime. So it's going to be kind of a cool thing.
Yes, and we are here.
Hey, as we approach the beautiful month of June, I want you guys to all remember we have an amazing team half marathon out there. This is the No One Left Behind half marathon. You can find registration right now on addicttoathlete.org. The cool thing about this marathon is you start with your team, you finish with your team. You guys stay together. Now, you can do 2-on-2, you can do 3-on-3, you can do 6-on-6, you can do however many you want. If you're a solo runner, come out anyway. We'll get you connected. But this is a great way for all of you to start together to finish together, kind of representation of what addiction, mental health, and just really lifestyle is.
Recovery.
When we're trying to do this all together.
We can't do it alone.
No, we can't.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, we've got finishers medals.
Yes.
We got T-shirts.
Shirts.
We got some great stuff that are planned. So it's going to be this
We
June
may
17th.
even have swimming
Really?
in this race.
We might, because Coach Jensen was out scoping our course, and we might have to have a few hurdles, but the race will go on.
We will adjust it, but
Yeah, no, we've had an incredible winter, and that's caused lots of runoff, but it's gorgeous and beautiful out there. So mark your calendars. Time's running out. Let's get you guys signed up, registered. Again, doesn't matter how many people you run with, just kind of come out and let's do this together. It's going to be a fun experience.
Yes.
Marissa.
We have people coming from Idaho, Arizona, I hear.
Yeah, we do. We got some travelers coming.
So
it's a big deal.
We should get some others from other states.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so check it out. addicttoathlete.org underneath the events tab. Marissa.
Yeah.
We have this amazing program called Patreon. Patreon's a program that we started to help give back to the listeners for their help of getting this podcast out a little bit further. And I love the premise because we give things back. Yep. And the content that we give, we've got our Addict to Athlete Recovery Playbook in there. Mm-hmm. We've got some deep dives on some certain topics. This last one I did was on pornography and addictions to it.
Yep. We have other just inspirational stories in there.
It's just for you, the Patreon listeners. And so what we want to do is if you want to help Addict to Athletes efforts in getting this podcast out further, jump on patreon.com/addicttoathlete. And we'll get you hooked up and started there.
Yep. We have exclusive shirts. I think we just got all the shirts out for this last year. There's a couple maybe.
I hand-delivered one yesterday.
I know.
I handed it off.
And Jerem flew all the way here from Brazil just to pick up his.
See?
And save me on shipping.
That's how much you wanted that Patreon shirt. Thanks, Jerem. But why don't we give a special shout out and thanks to all of our Patreon subscribers right now for the love they're showing to Team Addict Athlete.
Yes, we want to thank our super fans, Karen Hardy, Steve Riggs, Tracy Whitby, Jerem Thurston, Tara Butson, Holly Davies, Scott Foster, Brett Frew, Chris Williams, Sensei KP Brown, Patrick Forsyth, Brock Ellerman, and Christy Case. Our rookies, Sherry Polson, Earl Dyer, Wendell Wood, Brad Waldron, Gary Thurston, Ron and Dee Loesch, Sione and Mary Inuk, the pros, Justin Robbins, and our champion level, Shad and Freya Robinson and Andrew Baird.
Thank you. All of you Patreon subscribers. You guys are rock stars. It does help. We get this podcast out a little bit further and give you something in return. Patreon.com/addicttoathlete. Hey, while we've got people here, before we jump into the thick of things, we also have a new way to connect with us. Now, there's a lot of hubbub whatever that is, about social media. Lots of people have it. Lots of people don't. In fact, I've heard a lot of people that are ditching social media. And so we thought we better be ahead of this curve a little bit. And we have an amazing way to keep you guys in the loop on what we're doing. Even more so than social media. You want to explain this? Because I'm sure I'll bugger it up somehow.
Yes. So we are just doing a VIP list for some exclusive information, news, upcoming events, things like that. So if you will go to our Instagram page, Insta, and go DM us there. That means direct message for any of you that don't know. Hashtag VIP. It will walk you through how to get signed up. We also are posting links directly to the sign up page on a few places if you want to keep your eyes open for that. But that's the way you can kind of know about new things coming up. And it'll be a fast, easy way to stay connected. I know there are people that don't do social media, and we do a lot of stuff on Facebook, and so they just don't get there and see it. So get on our VIP list so we can keep you updated on new things coming.
So this could be things by nature of upcoming events, discount codes for merchandise. It could be connections with people in the running community. Whatever we need to push out, we'll use this as a resource for you, and it's directly to you. And you'll be considered a VIP, which is kind of a cool thing, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so check that out. If you have questions, shoot us some messages. You can find us on all the social media platforms. All right, Marissa, if that wasn't enough today, we're going to talk about burnout. Burnout, yeah. It's interesting. I've been talking to a few of my clients and a few of the athletes that have kind of felt this overwhelming state of just fatigue. Just kind of like, what's the flipping point, right?
Yeah.
We talk about burnout here and there within the professional realms, making sure that, we kind of are keeping ourselves in the game, so to speak. Yeah. But I've been listening to a few situations and stories about people that are getting burnout in jobs they thought would be careers. And it's a sad thing because you have this passion, you have this love and this drive, and it starts to lose its luster, so to speak. Burnout in and of itself is a state of emotional or mental or sometimes physical exhaustion brought on by prolonged and repeated stress. Now, there's an interesting thing about that. Stress is everywhere. There's good stress, there's bad stress.
And that means burnout can show up anytime, anywhere.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to be different on when it shows up for them, right?
Yeah, well, and this is the thing, is it's most commonly linked to problems at a work environment, a working place, a career. But it can also be burnout in parenting and caregiving and relationships and a lot of other things, hobbies and interests. Burnout isn't just exclusive to a pursuit of employment or a career. Yeah. And so, if you've ever experienced burnout, it's kind of a bummer because you're thinking, I should be enjoying this. I should be passionate about this. I should be thrilled to have a job or to be in this relationship or to be connecting with the kids. But too much is too much.
Yeah.
You ever experienced burnout?
When have I not? No, yes.
Constant state?
It's not constant, but yeah, all the time. And there's times that it surprises me, and then comes out of nowhere, and I'm just like, I get frustrated and short-tempered and think maybe I want to change everything. And sometimes I just need to relax. Yeah. Well, burnout isn't just, again, a result of working long hours or juggling too many tasks. There are those play roles in it, but really it turns into this deep cynicism and this depression and maybe even some lethargy where you just feel like I'm done. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. I want to walk away. And sometimes we make impulsive decisions when we're burned out. Yeah. We don't take time to think about this kind of stuff, but it's a conflict that all of us are going to deal with in one way, shape, or form. But burnout can also be a danger zone for people that are struggling with mental health issues, that are struggling with addiction recovery. Yeah. And so we've got to kind of understand what brings it on, what we can do to avoid the consequences of it, what flags to raise, how to be aware of it. I mean, there's so many components to this that it's a very real issue. And I'm seeing it a lot more these days in a lot of people that would otherwise probably describe themselves as very optimistic, very engaged, and it's a scary thing. I mean, let's take it, for instance, coming off the heels of post-pandemic now, work environment is struggling. There's a lot of people that are having a hard time maintaining that positive work attitude. The pandemic sure did stir the pot. Yeah. Did you notice? Well, and I think inflation has caused, because then there's stress on work and then there's stress on how to pay bills, and all of a sudden you have to adjust and redo everything, and that's hard. You know.
So when I first started looking at this, I started thinking, okay, well, what were my goals of even engaging in this? You know, I don't think I've ever felt a long period of burnout, although there've been stressful moments, until we got deep into ownership of a treatment center, where I'm like, this isn't really what it's cracked up to be. Now, here's the deal. When we come to these little forks in the road, right, we have to start understanding what's going to be good and beneficial for us versus what's the safe and secure path.
Yeah, because we talked last night about comfort zones and growth zones. So being able to assess, is this that I'm just moving into a learning zone? Is that what one of them was? And to a comfort zone, or is this a stress zone?
Yeah.
It's hard.
So you think of it this way, right? You have your comfort zone, and then the next ring outside of that is the fear zone, right? And the fear zone kind of keeps you from progressing. It kind of, it's a little bit scary because you're starting to leave that safety of the comfort zone. And so there's all kinds of things that could potentially risk you, proceeding forward or going back. But then if you can pass through the fear zone, you get into what's called the learning zone. Yeah. This is where some cool things start to happen. This is where the newness of what happens in life or in a job or in a family kind of starts really feeling good. And then you get into the growth zone where you can maintain it, cultivate it, and strengthen it. But like I said last night, all of us are going to always have that safety spot wherever we go, whatever we do, to get back in the comfort zone. Yeah. Humans, we kind of want to be there. Now, some people's comfort zones are going to be very different and vast than mine. Some of them, their comfort zones are jumping out of planes and, diving into big bodies of water. I don't know.
They always just love the thrill and
absolutely. But exactly. Where others are probably going to be hibernating in the basement in the dark, eating, popsicles. I don't know. Right. Yeah. So the cool thing about this, though, is that burnout happens when even your comfort zone isn't quite comfortable anymore. And, it's kind of one of these things where you can feel physically and mentally exhausted, and a sense of dread about work, that person, that experience, and anger and irritability kind of are key signs that something's wrong. I see this with people that I've worked with in the past that have typically had really good positive attitudes, and you can see them kind of start to decay to a certain degree, right? Yeah. They start getting sharp and aggressive and just kind of not available, and they start to distance themselves. And their work begins to suffer, their relationships begin to suffer. And without realizing what's going on, they're burnt out. Yeah. You ever see that?
All the time.
So, the difference between burnout and stress are kind of important, because stress does cause burnout. But, by definition, burnout is kind of an extended period of that stress that feels like it cannot be removed, right? There's no way out. When Marissa and I were kind of positioned in the program that we owned, and we realized that it was causing more stress than not, and when we were asked to leave, it really was kind of an awakening that we were both on a path of burnout, and we're just kind of keeping ourselves afloat. But that came with its own sense of stress, right? The stress of not having the security of the job turned into the extra effort and time to build Team Addict Athlete.
Yeah. Well, and here we are. What do you do and how do you adjust? Because then it's just something new. Even though it was stressful, it was something that we were used to. Yeah. We had a schedule and we had operations that we did, and that just kind of became the normal, even though it was high stress and creating burnout, and being able to step back and try to assess it and say, is this too much stress? Is this growth phase? Is it a learning phase? Or is it burnout? Or is it depression? Oh my goodness, that takes some time.
So let's chat about that for a second, because stress is more short-lived, right? And it's usually tied to a specific goal or desire or want, and it's not usually that harmful because it can come and go. Well, burnout's really kind of long. The longevity of it is very persistent. So it's an interesting thing. We're going to talk about this in a minute, but should you quit your job if you're burned out? I mean, should that be, I'm burned out, I'm quitting?
Well, I think that's like you said, you have to look at it as am I going to make impulsive decisions that I'll regret later? Or do I just need to decompress? Yeah.
This is where you have to dissect, is this stress or is this being burned out, right? Because again, if stress feels like it's never ending and comes with feelings of emptiness, apathy, hopelessness, things like that, it may be an indicator of burnout and not stress. Most of us don't think we're prone to it because, we want to rise to the occasion. We want to rise to the challenge. But we have to be real with ourselves, and there's been a couple times where I know I've been highly stressed and I'll even qualify it as burnout. But putting in the old work, the shoulder to the wheel, so to speak, specifically once when I had a very intense micromanaging boss in my life, and the guy was just a effing nightmare. And we were doing fine without the goober, and he comes in and starts stirring the pot when everything was going well. I think he kind of dissolved our dream team, so to speak, and everyone quit. It's like, hey, champion, your freaking mindset of micromanaging, look what it did. Like, mission accomplished? Like, what were you hoping for?
But let's think back to that situation. How long did it go that you were getting stressed and you were getting to that burnout before you made the decision?
Quite a while.
To quit.
Quite a while. But that was like the tipping point. But I remember coming to you and being like, I think it's over. And you were being like, well, okay.
Yeah, because I could tell it had been happening for a while. It wasn't just like, a new boss that's just on your nerves and you're just learning how to navigate together again, And I remember you were, a lot more ornery at home, and it was affecting you mentally. It was affecting you emotionally. It was affecting our home life. And I was like, maybe then we need to look at something else. If he's not going to change and the way you interact with him is stuck, what you need to make a difference.
So we look at this and we say, okay, so there's this understanding that, yes, you're on that path. You are experiencing burnout. So, before we learn how to deal with it, we have to also kind of digest, well, then how do we maneuver through it? Yeah. What you're seeing right now in America is a lot of people that are kind of done being treated like crap. Meaning like these jobs that people are having that they used to be able to experience working at a level of high stress, of intimidation, of threat of scarcity. You're going to get fired. To the point where after the pandemic, people were like, wait a minute, I have a choice in all this kind of stuff?
We were just talking about this today, right?
Yeah.
In the situation of colleges and universities and how everything's going to change with AI. And it used to be just buckle down, you just got to work harder. And so a lot of older generations look at the kids now and just like, they don't know how to work and they're just lazy. But guess what? They have the choice.
They're smarter.
I remember years ago, at least here in Utah County, it was if you didn't go to college, you worked at Geneva, which was like a steel
mill. Yeah.
Steel mill. And
watch the original Footloose. You'll see it.
Yeah. Those are like the two options. And it was like, and then you worked at Geneva for 45 years and that's it. And you didn't have any options and you just worked hard but guess what? There are so many other options now. Information is just at our fingertips to do anything, and people can choose what really makes them happy rather than what they feel like they have to do to survive.
Yeah. And so, what you're seeing now too is that people that are burned out, one of the reasons I think AI is going to be kind of an interesting, little beast is that it's going to eliminate a lot of jobs. Yep. Which is going to cause a lot of stress, which is going to cause a lot of burnout. So what do we do with that, though, right? I mean, it's a good thing, AI, but it's also a bad thing. So what is it? It's the way we approach it, and this is one of these things where, there's a lot of skepticism and a lot of fear and scarcity in some of what's happening, but AI will only be, today, AI is as bad as it's ever going to be. And it's pretty amazing. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So each day you look at it, it's only going to get bigger and better. Yeah. But it's also going to put a lot of fear and stress into people, which is going to cause burnout. And that burnout can either be fizzled into depression, isolation, mental health, suicide, addiction, or it can be, well, now that this is happening, maybe I can rise to this challenge. Yeah. It's going to be hard to motivate people to go back to school, to, jump over that increase of fear, to learn, get in that growth zone, because we don't know. right? And when we don't know, we guess, and we usually guess wrong.
Well, and trying to just be upset that it's here or upset that it's taking jobs. Yes, there's a time for that. We need to be frustrated. But guess what? It's not going away. You know, people did the same thing when we had TV.
Yeah.
TV came about and it was going to ruin everybody.
It's going to ruin radio.
I mean, how dare they? Radio's better than anything. Everything has something that just develops into something better. And so if you sit back and just complain about it, you're just going to be sad.
You're going to burn yourself out.
Going to railroad you right over as it continues to grow. So we have to change and grow and adapt. And it's hard. It's scary and it's frustrating. But, you know, that is the learning zone. That is the growth zone. And that's how we become better.
That way you also can avoid burnout because, you know, we should never plateau as humans. We should always kind of keep learning, keep kind of progressing. This is why a lot of people that get into addiction recovery, it's awesome because they get out of their comfort zone, they cross that fear zone, they're in the learning zone, and it feels so great. But they don't realize that that learning zone, that growth zone, really does require you to plant more and to cultivate more and to do more. Yeah. So a lot of people plateau and they're like, well, this sucks, burnout.
Yeah.
You know, how can I maintain this? Because you're not producing. You're just kind of maintaining.
Well, and if you're looking at the addiction recovery piece, that's one of the best things you can do for recovery is to be able to learn new things and create new neural pathways. Like addiction causes issues. It causes problems physically and in your mind. It burns stuff out in your brain. And one way to enhance that and to strengthen it is by learning new things, trying new things, and in that growth zone. So that's how you heal. That's how you heal.
100%. So how do we deal with burnout then? Because while some work environments may be especially grinding and, you know, like medical professionals, mental health professionals, law enforcement, those kind of things, everyone who's running out of gas is going to take steps to try and alleviate whatever that is. But what if eliminating that means removing yourself from that line of employment, right? It's like we feel trapped, we feel stuck. To counter burnout, we have to have a sense of purpose. We have to reestablish why we are doing what we're doing. Yeah. You know, I've been watching a few things on teachers right now, and we're losing lots and lots of teachers. They're simply burned out because they get it from parents, they get it from their administrators, they get it from fellow teachers.
Kids are mouthing
off. The kids are mouthing off, and it's like, I would no way want to be a teacher.
Right now, there's so many strict requirements. They can't even have fun and build relationships because then they have the next test that's going to say if they get more funding or if they can keep their job. And that's horrible. Yeah, and I was talking to one guy who was talking about teaching, and he was saying that, you know, he started teaching, and because his test scores improved, he lost his job. I'm like, what? It's because once all these test kids, these kids passed this class, they realized they didn't need that class anymore. And they could just be absorbed into the other classes with the other teachers who didn't quite reach that mark, but they wouldn't need him. So he eliminated his job by doing his job. Wow. Because of tenure. Now, that's a whole other story. But the thing about this that I got thinking about is, you know, if we are at a situation, and this happened after the pandemic where we lost a lot of teachers, you know, and a lot of teachers that were burned out, I've noticed, you know, like our kids would say, they all made these videos during the pandemic and they're still showing them. So what is a teacher doing? But here's the deal, right? This isn't just a teacher pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get it done. It's we need to fundamentally change the way our kids are being taught. We're teaching things they don't need to know anymore. Yeah. And that's kind of a crappy thing too, because we got the old boomers who are like, hey, you've got to do it this way, when it's like, do our kids truly need to know all of this stuff when they can say, hey, Google, or hey, Siri, or Chat GPT?
I mean,
here we go. AI does your job.
You and I were watching a little social media thing last night with a kid who raised his hand and said, a lot of my fellow students are getting in trouble for using Chat GPT for essays. Is that cheating?
Math.
And I love this guy's answer. He says something to the tune of, in order to say it's cheating, it has to be a competition. School should not be a competition. No. It should be a place where you learn and grow. So what we should be teaching you is how to use the technology.
Yeah. How to learn, how to have critical thinking skills, and how to decide your ideas in the world. Yeah.
Can you imagine a kid, like, you know, most addiction starts, you know, in that adolescent / teenage year. And can you imagine, like, stimulating a kid's brain to think independently for themselves on projects, on situations, on things that they get to have hands on. I mean, look at this financial class our kids get to go through that we never had.
Yeah.
I mean, to balance a checkbook, what is a checkbook these days? To be able to know what investments are, to understand the stock market, to understand like what inflation is, what interest rates are.
It's required now, but it's still like
Teeny.
half of a semester one time. I'm like, you guys need like 2 years of this.
I'm sorry. Math is fantastic, but you don't need it anymore because every phone they carry, guess what? Has a calculator.
Yeah.
And even more important than that, it has a little search bar.
Photo math.
We have photo math. When I saw photo math, I was so pissed because you take a picture of the freaking problem and it plots it out on how to do it. It tells you step by step by step.
Yeah.
I got thinking, you've got to be kidding me. So we need to start turning this stuff around back into, having these kids become creators again, have them start thinking again, have them start like inspired to be the more improved, better, the Steve Jobs, and those kind of kids.
Well, and I think when you look at it, how to deal with that burnout too, then is how do I reassess my life? How do I reassess, is this something I am passionate about and I just need a break? It's going to be taking some time, taking a break, talking to somebody. Mm-hmm. Sometimes our view is very cluttered and a mess, and it's hard to assess and make a choice and a decision. So talk to multiple people, reach out and ask for feedback, help, ideas. Don't try to figure it out yourself, because when you're burned out, you're not going to be able to think clearly. You're not going to be able to make the best decisions, right?
Yeah, and school. I know my youngest boy. He is burnt out with school.
How do you tell?
Oh man, dozen texts a day. I can't handle this. So here's the deal, right? Do we force him to be there because we never got to go home?
Yeah.
It's a different environment too. And he has to stay there. But on the same breath, I was like, we need to take a very hard look on what's going to really stimulate his mind. Is public school the place for him? Does he need to do something with more hands-on? I mean, we've got to do these kind of things because
there's other options now.
The coast isn't so clear anymore. Should you quit your job if you're burned out? Well, maybe. It's kind of your opinion. But speaking about concerns of restructuring your work environment to address the burnout, you've got to start nurturing relationships and adopting self-care habits. I mean, that's what Team Addict to Athlete strives to do. With mental health concerns, with addiction recovery, with overall well-being. We have people here that don't have mental health issues, that don't have addictions, but they come here because they feel care of self is an important step. Yeah. And care of self isn't just doing things for themselves. It's also being a resource and an advocate for the other people here. And so, focusing on new hobbies, maybe restoring a sense of self and letting alleviate the stress through your hands-on experience, maybe gardening, whatever it is, we have to do this. But here's the deal, as I was kind of going through some of this stuff, guess what the number one tool is to overcome any kind of burnout?
What?
We do it every day here. Exercise.
What
Movement equals healing. What is this new secret? Tell me. Movement equals healing. If you start looking at some of these burnout causes, it's because we become sedentary, we become stuck, we become isolated, we become alone. Mm-hmm. When we make that leap to get out of that rut, you have to move. If you're quitting your job, guess what you're doing? You're moving. Yeah. If you're wanting to recreate your life, maybe do something like lose some weight, you're going to have to move. Movement equals healing. So where do you draw those boundaries? Right? You've got too many conflicts, too many responsibilities, too much stress. Where do you begin to alleviate or eliminate some of that stuff? You have to make a list of what it truly is. When I made a list in my mind, I don't say you have to write it out, but in my mind, it was, I am not happy in this position anymore.
Pros and cons. Right?
Why? What do I know? What do I don't know? Mm-hmm. And the list started to look so much like more appealing to leave because the benefits didn't really have that much gain. And it sucked because the people I was working with, I loved. I loved my coworkers. I loved the clients I was working with. Yeah. But the stress. And you've been there for so long. Mm-hmm.
You really loved the job. But there were a few things that changed that made it difficult to work around, right? Even though you started to apply some of the self-care. So that's why I think it is that you have to take time. You have to do the self-care so you can look at it more realistically. And like you say, you came and talked to me, talking to other people and getting some other viewpoints that you may not be able to see.
Yeah. So, can self-care, practices help? Well, yeah, absolutely. The most effective weapon against burnout, as we know right now, is to move, to get mindful, to start doing some mindful meditation, some mindful techniques, some yoga, massage, exercise, dietary changes, practicing self-compassion, which a lot of us don't do. A lot of us give so much, we leave nothing in the tank for ourselves. And in order to do that, you've got to understand like what your emotional, mental, physical, spiritual thresholds are. And if you are new into the workforce, establish those now. If you are years and years and years into a career, you better get on board, because the thing that stinks is we used to have this understanding that without me, this place wouldn't work. And that's just simply not true, right? I mean, we're very replaceable, which kind of sucks. But on the same breath, if you're practicing self-compassion and you're doing things for you, you start to live and not work to live. And, that's what it has to be. It's kind of funny. I like to say this to you all the time. It's like, I don't think you and I are ever truly off from Addict to Athlete.
Yeah.
Have you noticed?
I work a lot.
Yeah, we work a lot, but it's also our way of being. It's who we are. It's like...
Well, one thing that has helped me, besides it's all the time, is since we've had our own place, I've started leaving my computer here at work.
I've done that too.
I still do a lot on my phone, but it's helped me be able to leave work at work, where before our home was our office, and so it was really hard to have some of those.
But think about it. What I mean by that is it's become our way of being, and that's okay, because we have the day job, but then we have like the after stuff, and then we have the weekend stuff, and then we are kind of always thinking. I'm always reading and thinking, and and all these kind of things, and I'm like, well, why haven't I got burned out then with this? Well, it's because you do all the work, and I just get all the glory. So maybe I need to take some more of your weight off your shoulders. No, it's because it's our purpose, right?
Well, it's something you enjoy.
Yeah.
So you're passionate about it.
But what happens when burnout's not caused by work? Jobs aren't the only source of chronic stress. You know that, right? Mm-hmm. What if it's your elderly parents? What if it's your relationships you're in? What if it's your hobbies aren't quite giving you that same thrill that you had before? Or maybe you're out there. I've talked to many people that said, I was out running and I was just done. I'm sick of it. I was watching this video on a professional cyclist who was really kind of coming up in ranks and doing fantastic. And, after a small little setback, he's like, this is stupid. I'm done. Yeah. And everyone's like, what are you doing? And he's like, I don't find joy in it anymore. And he went and he started studying art, and he has his own art gallery, and he creates art now. And I thought that is such a vast difference from like the intensity of road cycling at professional level to selling paintings. But it's like he was done. And the cool part about that is eliminating the fear of the change, because all of us are afraid of change.
That reminds me, we had an artist come and do a Addict to Artist group.
Thank you, Ryan Imus. Appreciate that, brother.
And that's what he talked about, is he had done art a little here and there, but not a lot, until he was like 5 years in recovery, and he really felt like all he did and everything was just 12 steps and a sponsor. But he got to the point, he became so depressed and to the point of suicidal ideation. He was like, I've got to do something different. I have to do something different. So he started just trying different things, and he started doing polar plunges, which I think are
You got to be on another level.
It's the point of it's just experiencing things and pushing yourself and getting out of your comfort zone, and started doing art. And he's at the point now, he's like selling his art. It's just a huge hobby for him, because he just absolutely loves it and has so much passion for it. Like, he's just alive. I didn't know him in those first 5 years of his recovery, but you meet him and he's just energetic and you just feel inspired when you're around him. And some of that has come with him just trying new things and being willing to change.
Absolutely. Non-work burnout is not as well known as career stress, burnout. We know this because there are stereotypes and stigma that are also kind of related to, I guess, non-work burnout. Because what happens if you're a parent and you are burnt out from your kids, right? You can't just say, well, I'm going to go ahead and quit my kids, quit my family, right? I'm out. This is something that you experienced that I was very naive towards. Every Saturday I'd get up and I'd ride my bike for 1,000 hours, and
work was rough.
Work was hard, and it's good for me. And I remember coming back one day, and you were just kind of, I could tell you were burned out because you were like yelling at me because you were burned out. And
it's pretty obvious.
It got me thinking quite deeply about shoot, I need to pull some responsibility here. As a mother, that can't be an easy thing to do.
No, and I don't think you were doing it to be mean or rude. You were just oblivious. But a lot of times that's what life is. Like, sometimes we're just oblivious. We get so caught in our own view of the world and what we have to do, and every day we don't see what other people do and what they go through. And so being able to open your eyes to somebody else's perspective is really important. Go look at something from their side and go, wow, maybe I could do something else. Maybe I could help a little more. Oh, I had no idea. You're literally with the kids 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
I remember you saying, I want an adult conversation.
Yeah.
And not with you. I'm like, oh, okay. You watch your friends.
I remember we went to lunch at like this really nice restaurant for when I was into the kids and diapers and diaper bags. And I turned to you and I said, I'm going to go potty.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm a mom and I can't even talk in like adult big words. So I need help.
That should have been my first recognizing factor that you were burning out. Because there are some signs and signals of what happens with caregiver burnout. Caring for a child with special needs or an aging parent, it's going to trigger burnout. I think that we kind of neglect that scope of folks who are taking care of their elderly parents. We've had several athletes that have been in that situation. They feel so dang guilty when they have to raise that flag and maybe say, hey, I need help. What happens if I have to, heaven forbid, put my parent in a home, right? It's like, well, shoot, that's one of these things where there's such guilt and remorse, but yet you can't do it alone. I think every family has a responsibility to step up, but so many other people think, well, so-and-so will take care of it, and so-and-so will take care of it. That feelings of frustration and helplessness and anger, man.
And being able to take care of yourself, take some breaks, plan something in, say, hey, I just need a mental health day. I need some time off, or I need to do something for me, and try something new. Take a class, take an art class, try some new activity that you've never done. Learn how to play pickleball. Do something
for you.
Outside for you.
But also we have to understand, listeners, that you have a family system that also probably needs to either A, assist you, or you assist them in the day-to-day, week, month-to-month, holiday type stuff that you'll do with your own family. We had a family system situation in your family where your oldest sister was the one that kind of planned everything.
Yeah.
And for years, we're just like, hey, cool, we'll be there.
That's awesome.
And then I remember one day she's like, I'm done. How many family gatherings have we had?
Not
many. Why?
And people think, I know there's been rumor like, oh, why is she so mad?
She's not mad. She's burned out.
Yeah. Why was the expectation that she was always the one that did the planning?
Exactly.
Why did no one else do it? Well, because she did it. But if she's not doing it and you want to do something, then you plan it.
Yeah. And so, and that's a hard thing too, because again, sometimes we're so dang naive that we just kind of stumble through it. And I'm the most naive person in the world when it comes to that kind of stuff. We had some missionaries from our church come over a couple of weeks ago, and it was raining and snowing outside. And I was so dang dense that I didn't realize that they were kind of hinting they wanted to ride, but I'm like, well, see you later. Pushed them right out the door. And you're like, all the kids.
I thought there was a reason that you were like, no they need to walk.
Or blissfully ignorant. And the kids were like, dude, they wanted to ride. I'm like, oh, I felt so guilty. But that happens too, where we become so like fixated on what we're doing that we forget that there may be people around us that need help, that need assistance, that just need a little bit of recognition.
Yeah.
Because they're on that path of burnout. There's a lot you can do. If you need help with it, reach out, addictathlete.org. There's stress relieving techniques we can do. Shoot, we'd love to have you guys start following us on whatever platform. We'd love to get you invited and involved on Team Addict to Athlete, because movement equals healing.
Yes.
You can have the world's worst day. You go out for a run, you come back, and you can solve world hunger. It's just the way the brain operates.
And it seems counterintuitive because you're like, that takes more effort. But try it.
Absolutely.
You'll feel better.
Do something for yourself. That's why I'm so glad that Ryan came with the art thing, because it did, just watching everybody kind of like be nervous about it, but then to fully embrace it was kind of a cool thing for the time I was here.
Yeah, he created a space where it was like, there's nothing right, nothing wrong. We're just going to create, and it doesn't matter what you do, nothing. And all of a sudden I saw people that I would assume would be really hesitant about, I'm not a good artist, or I can't do this right, or I'm going to make a mess, just doing stuff. And we did.
Absolutely. That's why you see these things popping up where people, they go and they have you seen this? There's like, they go into a room at a building and they like break stuff. Like you pay to go break things. Like they get you in like safety goggles and then you go and you like
nice
sledgehammer a computer.
Anger management. It's awesome.
It's like on Office Space, that scene where they're all busting the printer because they hate it. Yeah. It's the best, right? So do it the healthy way. Don't do it the way that you'll be maybe arrested and held for some felony. So don't leave your burnout that way. Thanks so much for joining us today on the Addict to Athlete Overtime. I hope that's helped. Please reach out to us. You'll find us on all of the social media platforms. This live broadcast will be turned around to become a podcast this Friday. And listeners, athletes, all those in between, go turn your mess into a message.